Hello and welcome to Loving Tech Life, and today I'm going to show you how I've set up my in-home streaming for my Steam Deck OLED for a seamless console-like experience. This is a complete guide where I'll take you through all the setup end to end so you don't have to jump out of this video to any other guides. However, I've put timestamps below for the different sections of this guide so you can complete it at your own pace. I'll show you how to get a sharp, high quality streaming image that's super responsive and takes advantage of the Steam Deck OLED's unique features like 90Hz refresh and high dynamic range or HDR that has been unlocked with some of the recent updates to Windows 11. This guide will also work with the LCD Steam Deck 2, just minus the unique OLED deck features. So to be clear, I'm talking about local in-home streaming, not remote streaming. These are games that you own that are on your PC, so think of things like your Steam library, Xbox Game Pass, Epic Games, and things like that. We're going to be streaming those games to your Steam Deck OLED. This setup is a console-like experience with a single interface for all of the different launchers and services like the ones I just mentioned. Once you have it all set up, you'll be able to seamlessly move from sitting at your desk using your PC like you normally would to being able to stream games to your deck while you're away from your PC, and then quickly and easily switch back again when you're done. Be sure to stick around to the end for some handy tips and tricks for the whole setup that I've learned along the way through my own trial and error, and for my final thoughts on why I love the setup so much. With that said, let's get into it. Hi, I'm David Loving and you're watching Loving Tech Life. On this channel, I share my love of consumer and gaming tech with tips, tutorials, and reviews based on my experiences. Welcome. First, I'll discuss some of the things you will need for this setup. You will obviously need a computer. I have a modest mid-range gaming setup with an AMD 3600 CPU and RTX 3060 Ti graphics card. Whatever you have will work as long as you understand that your PC is your limitation for how good games look and perform. When it comes to the streaming itself, the quality and performance will depend on how good your connectivity is between your PC and the Steam Deck while in your house. Ideally, your PC is hardwired rather than using Wi-Fi. This will give you the most stable and highest quality streaming results. When it comes to the Wi-Fi connection to your Steam Deck, there are two things you need to know. The first is to use the 5 or 6 GHz Wi-Fi spectrum to connect your deck instead of the 2.4 GHz one. This will give you the best latency and bandwidth. Second, you shouldn't be too far away from your wireless access points to get the best wireless signal and streaming quality. Depending on the size of your home and whether it's multi-level, you may need to have an extra access point or two hardwired back to your router to give you the best coverage. A single Wi-Fi router may provide enough coverage, but in a multi-level home, you'll likely need another access point to extend the wireless coverage. Stay away from any kind of wireless repeaters or power line adapters, as these won't give you good results for streaming. If you happen to have coaxial cable TV wired in your house, you could consider Mocha adapters to wire access points together. The Steam Deck OLED has up to Wi-Fi 6E capability, but I'm still using a couple of older Wi-Fi 5 Asus routers. They connect to the deck with the 5 GHz frequency that is shared with a bunch of other smart devices, and I'm still getting awesome results. For those of you that want to go the extra mile here, you could get a tri-band or quad-band Wi-Fi 6 or 6E router and dedicate one of the 5 or 6 GHz bands solely for use with the Steam Deck. This would ensure that the deck has the most Wi-Fi bandwidth possible for the best performance. Incidentally, this is the same thing you would do if you had a MetaQuest VR headset and wanted the best experience using AirLink over Wi-Fi to connect back to your PC. I'm planning to do this soon with my Wi-Fi network since I've been streaming games so much on my deck, and I'm considering upgrading my old routers and creating a Wi-Fi 6E mesh network for the best experience. If I do, I'll make a video in the future with this setup. I'll leave some links in the description for some Wi-Fi 6 and 6E tri-band and quad-band routers that I've researched that will do a great job if you're interested. Just remember that you will need more than one of these if you have a bigger area to cover. So in summary, you have your computer hardwired through Ethernet and good Wi-Fi coverage in your house, or at the very least, you are close enough to your router to get a good signal. From here, we'll download and configure a few bits of software. To begin with, you'll download and install Sunshine on your PC. This is a program that will create the connection between your PC as the host and the Steam Deck as the client. To download it, head to the GitHub link in my description or type Sunshine Moonlight into search and select the GitHub link here. Scroll down the page to the releases section here and click on the latest release. Then scroll down this page to the Assets section and find the Sunshine Windows Installer.exe and click on it to download it. Open it to install, and if Windows Defender or other antivirus pops up, select Run Anyway as it's safe. Then go through the install process with the default settings and keep clicking Next. Once it's installed, you'll be taken to a documentation page, but to open Sunshine, you'll need to open a new tab and type localhost 47990, or go down to the taskbar and open it from there. If this privacy page pops up because it's not a HTTPS secure connection, go ahead and select Advanced and proceed to localhost, since you know it's safe and an app you installed yourself on your PC. Now you can set up a username and password, and don't forget to save this information since you're going to need it. I use a password manager called NordPass to create strong passwords and remember them across all my devices so I don't have to. I'll leave a link in the description to NordPass in case you're interested. Now hit login and enter your login information. So now we have the Sunshine interface, which we'll come back to shortly. Sunshine should now be working already, and to try it out, we need to set up the Moonlight client software on the Steam Deck, which we'll do next. But before that, I highly recommend you do this next step first, as it will save you some headaches later on. Also, if we want to make Sunshine a seamless experience, we can't just launch Sunshine every time manually. So we need to go to the Services app by going to Search, typing in Services, right-click and Run as Administrator. Now the Services app window pops up, and we'll need to scroll down until we find the Sunshine service. Right-click and go to Properties. Under Startup Type, change it to Automatic if it isn't already, and then Apply. Now Sunshine will automatically launch every time we start our PC. Now we're going to move on to installing Moonlight on the Steam Deck OLED. Until just recently, you needed to download a specific nightly version if you wanted support for HDR, but now the stable version has been updated, and as of version 6, it will support HDR on Windows 11 since the 22H2 Windows update. So just make sure your Windows is up to date and you should be fine. To install Moonlight, we first need to switch over to desktop mode. You can do this by holding down the power button for a few seconds, or by bringing up the menu with the Steam button, scrolling down to power, and then selecting switch to desktop. In desktop mode, open the Discover app at the bottom here and type Moonlight into search. Then select install. Next, we can open Moonlight here, and you'll see an icon with a lock in the middle of it because we haven't connected Moonlight to Sunshine yet by getting the PIN code. Select the desktop, and a window pops up with the PIN you'll need to connect to Sunshine back on your PC. On Sunshine, go ahead and enter this PIN and send, and a green success message will appear. We can do a quick test on Moonlight on the deck before we move on by checking the lock icon has now been removed. And if we select it, you'll see a couple of default options, Desktop and Steam Big Picture. I selected Steam Big Picture, and now it will start up on your desktop and stream it to your deck. Now we add Moonlight to Steam by opening Steam, selecting Add a Game button at the bottom. Add a non-Steam game, scroll down the list until you find Moonlight and tick the box next to it, and select Add Selected Programs. Now it will appear in the game launcher after we finish working in the desktop environment. Next, we're going to set up the new virtual display which supports HDR, along with any resolutions or refresh rates we need. This way we have a dedicated virtual display that we will use for streaming to the deck, matching its 16:10 aspect ratio, HDR support and refresh rate, and avoid having to change resolution, HDR and refresh on your main monitor every time you connect to the deck, and you don't need to keep your real monitor switched on to have streaming working. This is often achieved with a piece of hardware called a HDMI dummy plug, but I wanted to avoid having to buy and test different plugs until I found the right one that worked, and found I have a lot more flexibility with the virtual driver, and unlike the HDMI dummy plug, it's free. So to start, we're going to download the IDD sample driver with HDR, either by searching for Virtual Display Driver HDR and select the GitHub link from It's Mike the Tech, or follow the link I'll leave in the description below. I'll also leave a link to the page with instructions It's Mike the Tech created to install the driver in case it changes in the future. Click and download the latest version of the vdd.hdr zip file here. Right-click and select Extract All, which will extract the zip to the same folder. This next step is very important. You will need to go to your C drive and create a folder called IDD Sample Driver, and copy and paste the option.txt file from the unzip folder to this new folder you created. Next, right-click the install cert.bat file and select Run as Administrator to add the driver certificate as a trusted root certificate. If Windows pops up with this blue window, select More Info and Run Anyway. You will see this command window open and that it was completed successfully. Just hit any key to continue, and the window will disappear. Don't double-click the iddsampledriver.inf to install it. Instead, open Device Manager by typing Windows and R and typing devmgmt.msc and hitting OK. In the Device Manager, go to the top and select Action and Add Legacy Hardware. A hardware wizard will pop up and select Next. Then tick the option for Install the hardware that I manually select from a list, Advanced. Then select Display Adapters and Next. On the next window, select Have Disk, then Browse. And from here, navigate to the folder you extracted with the INF file. In my case, I put it in the Downloads folder, so I selected Home, then Downloads, opened up the VDD HDR folder, and again the VDD folder inside that, then the IDD sample driver folder, and selected the INF file and select Open. Select OK, and you'll see the IDD sample driver device HDR on the list. Select Next, and Next again to install. Select Finish, and you're done installing the driver. In the Device Manager, under Displays, you'll see the IDD Sample Driver Device HDR show up here, and this is where you can enable or disable it. We can go to the display settings to customize the resolution of the additional display, but before we do, it's important to note that the default options.txt file, which comes with the package, does not list the DEC optimal resolutions and refresh rates like 1280 by 800 at 90 Hz. In order to fix this, you just have to open the options.txt that we copied into the folder earlier and add the desired 16:10 aspect ratio resolutions and refresh rates. Here is a list of the resolutions I added to the options file. I'll also put them in the description below. And I entered them all in as follows. In particular, 2560 by 1600 at 90 Hz is ideal because then you can choose this resolution and below when choosing the graphic settings in your game when you're tuning the performance. Just to explain a little further, if you set the game's graphics to twice the Steam Deck's resolution, you'll notice better visual quality as long as your PC can handle it. If you set the virtual display to the Steam Deck's 1280 by 800, the game settings might not offer higher resolutions. So it's better to set the virtual display to a higher resolution and then adjust the in-game resolution to a lower setting if needed. While you're in display settings, make sure the external virtual display is set as an extension of the primary display. I'll explain why later. I then picked 2560 by 1600 for the resolution of the virtual display. Now we need to tell Sunshine to stream the virtual display instead of the real one. To do this, go to your PC, open Sunshine's options, go to the audio video settings, and set the output name to your preferred display. But first, we need to find out the specific name for the virtual display. Both displays, virtual and real ones, have a specific name. How do you know the name of the virtual display? First, navigate to the Sunshine folder and go into the Tools folder. For me, it was in this path under C drive, and yours should be similar. Here, you'll find the dxgi-info.exe. Don't run it by double-clicking. Instead, open a command line by hitting the Windows key, typing cmd and hit enter. The command line window will pop up, and simply drag the .exe tool over to the command line for a quick way to generate the path to it and hit enter to run it. Now look at the output section and your displays should be listed. We can find the name of the virtual display because it will match the resolution we set it to earlier. In my case, it was 2560 by 1600 and for whatever reason is known as display 5 and my real display is display 1. Now we copy paste the display name into the Sunshine config page. Head back to Sunshine, then configuration, and head to audio video and scroll down to output name and copy paste the full thing starting with the 2 backslashes here. Scroll down to the bottom and hit save. A green success message appears and instructs you to click apply to restart Sunshine. You're now done with setting Sunshine to stream on the virtual display automatically. Now Sunshine is set to stream the virtual display instead of the physical one. However, the game might still run on the real display because it's the primary display. To fix this, we need to temporarily make the virtual display the primary display anytime that Sunshine starts streaming and then automatically reverts back when it's finished. It's pretty simple. While in Sunshine on your PC and under configuration, go to the General tab and scroll to the bottom of the page until you find the Command Preparations section. Here, you can add commands for the system to run at the start and end of streaming. Click the green Add button and paste the following commands that I'll also put into the description. Just to be sure, Also tick the box next to it for the command to be elevated. Then select Save and Apply. By using these commands, we set Windows to make the external virtual display the only active display when streaming starts. If your real display is on, it should turn off when this happens. After we stop streaming, the second command tells the system to enable both displays and switch to extend mode. This is why we set the display to extend earlier on. There are some important things to be aware of with these commands set up this way. These commands work when you launch the streaming and when you stop the streaming properly. If you shut down your host PC remotely with your deck, it won't do the undo command because Sunshine didn't receive the stop streaming instruction. This means that if you restart your PC without properly ending streaming, it might not show anything on the physical display because it's still sending the video signal to the virtual display. If this happens, don't worry, just connect the deck and stop the streaming to let the undo command fix it. To stop the streaming properly, just press the RB, LB, start and select buttons at the same time, which takes you back to the Moonlight menu. Here, you just have to press the stop button and this will trigger the display switch command. Same goes for another command we'll set up later with the Playnite launcher interface. Earlier, you might remember that we set the Sunshine service to start automatically. This is so that you will always be able to reconnect with the deck. Otherwise, it would be hard to reset the correct video output without a video signal. Next, we're going to set up a component that I highly recommend where we install Playnite and run it at launch in full screen while streaming. Since Playnite is a game library manager, this gives me a slick console-like experience with a single interface and access to all my games from all the different gaming services I mentioned earlier, like Steam, Game Pass and Epic. From there, you can just select your favorite game and play. Since I also use my PC for other things aside from gaming, I have it automatically switch back out of full screen on Playnite when the stream ends. So to begin with, we're going to download and install Playnite. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Otherwise, in search, type Playnite, choose the top result here, scroll down to the green download button, select it and save the file. Then open the installer and click the options section here and tick the box that says portable. While you're here, also make note of the destination folder as we'll need this one again later. So maybe copy paste this into a notepad. Then hit install. Once it's installed, hit next, and this is where you can add any storefront or services that you have games. Tick the boxes for all the ones that are relevant to you and hit next. It will now take you through each of the different services to connect the account and authenticate them. For each store account, just click Connect Account and Authenticate. The other setting is optional. If you click Import Not Installed Games, Playnite will show your entire library of owned games. I later chose to enable this for all my libraries because it helped me see if I'd already owned a game on a different service or if I got it for free, preventing me from accidentally buying it again. Once you're done with the storefronts, you'll be brought to Playnite's desktop mode. This is important as Playnite has two modes, desktop and full screen. Full screen is the console-like front end that I showed earlier where all your games are easily launchable using the controls. This mode here is more for settings and doing behind the scene things like we're going to today. You can actually launch games from here if you want while you're at your PC, but while launching from the Steam Deck, we want a gaming device experience with the full screen mode. At the top, you'll see a message letting you know that it's importing the games from the different services, and you'll start to see the games populate on the left-hand side depending on how big your library is. While that's happening, we're going to change some settings. Click on the controller on the top left-hand side and select Settings. Here is a look at all of my settings. The main ones I changed from default are change when a game starts to do nothing, and after a game closes to do nothing. Check the box for minimize Playnite to system tray so Playnite will always stay open, and tick the box for launch Playnite when you start your computer. This way, when you start your computer, you can use it as normal, but Playnite will be ready to launch into full screen when streaming. Next, we're going to get our theme installed. This will make the full screen experience look as awesome as possible. Click the controller icon again and select add-ons from the drop-down menu, then Themes Full Screen. There's a bunch of these here and each one has its own configuration and settings and many have a GitHub or Playnite forums link. For this guide, I'm going to choose Playnite Modern UI and click Install. You're going to have to restart Playnite after this, so go ahead and do this by clicking Save and Yes. If you get booted into full screen mode, then click on the controller on the top right hand side and select Switch to Desktop Mode. While we're in Playnite, we're also going to install the add-on for the How Long to Beat database that will show how long it takes to beat each of the games we have in Playnite. To do this, click on the controller icon, select Add-ons, and under Generic, search How Long to Beat. Select it and install. Hit Save and Yes to restart again. Again, if it boots you to full screen, just switch back to desktop mode. Now that the add-on is installed, we want to download all the How Long to Beat data for our games. Select the controller, move your cursor down to Extensions, then over How Long to Beat, then click on Download Plugin Data. Here, I left it at All and selected download. This will take a while depending on how many games you have. When it's done, we'll have the how long to beat info on each game in full screen mode. While this data is being downloaded, we're going to add Playnite to Sunshine and set up the commands for automating the switch to and from full screen. Head back to Sunshine, select Applications and click the blue Add New button. Under Application Name, type Playnite, and under Command Preparations, we will add a do and undo command. Scroll down and click on the green Add Commands button. For these commands, you'll need a full path to the full screen executable. Hopefully, you saved the path when you installed Playnite. My path is under my user profile's app data folder. For example, it looks like this: C drive, users, my PC, app data, local, Playnite. Right-click on the Playnite full screen app and select Copy as Path. Then head over to the do command and paste it in with your specific path. I've already done it here, and once you've pasted in the path, type an extra command, space, -- hide splash screen. This extra command helps it start in full screen mode faster when we start Sunshine. In the undo command, paste in the path again and type space -- start desktop. This is so that when we quit Sunshine, it will switch back to desktop mode automatically. Then select save at the bottom. While we're in Playnite, another quick tip for you: if all your metadata and artwork hasn't downloaded for your games on Playnite right away, which happened to me, you can get Playnite to download it again by going to the controller at the top, mouse over library and select download metadata. Here I selected all games and then next, left the settings at default and selected download metadata. At the top you'll see that it's downloading the metadata and you'll see the artwork slowly filling out on Playnite. We now have Playnite set up with different game services, set it up to switch over to full screen while streaming and back to desktop when it's done. Now we'll set up categories and filters so it's easy to navigate between each of the game services. You could even have the correct icons for each of them. To start, you'll need to click on the filter icon at the top that looks like a funnel. Then you'll see a whole bunch of options that filter your library. Head to the library and choose the library you want to filter. So Epic is the first one I'm choosing here. My entire library just got filtered by Epic Store games. Now head to the save icon on the right and set a name. I mentioned earlier that we can get each of the correct icons for these filters. So here we'll want the logo for Epic. The icons actually come from the specific theme that you use. So when naming filters, you have to match the name of the filter to the name of the image that the theme uses to get that to show. So for example, in this guide, I'm showing the Playnite Modern UI theme. So if I navigate back to the folder where I installed Playnite, then Themes, Full Screen, Playnite Modern UI, Filter Icons, I'll see all the icons and their names. So when you're creating your filters, just match the names. So for the Epic icon, I just need to copy the name of the file and paste it into the filter name to get it to match, and tick the box to show as Quick Filter in full screen mode and select OK. Then filter each of the other libraries you want to create filters for and make the filter name match the name of the icon files. Now in full screen mode, you'll be able to filter by game service with all the matching icons on the left hand side using the L and R bumper buttons to navigate on the Steam Deck. You can keep going with this and add more filters for your favorite genres, for example. It's up to you. There is one last setting we're going to change in Playnite that will potentially save you a lot of headaches later on. This is a script we'll save on Playnite so that when you exit a game, it puts the focus back on the Playnite app. Otherwise, if the focus switches off it, I find I can no longer control the full screen interface and I have to quit out of it and start again from Moonlight to fix it. Just go to Settings again, select Scripts and paste in this script. I'll leave a copy of it in the description below. So back on the Steam Deck, we'll want to dial in our settings for Moonlight. There is one main issue I see people running into and complaining of blurry streaming quality. The key here is that you need to set the resolution and FPS on Moonlight to match whatever you have on the virtual display for Sunshine. So in my case, I have to choose a custom resolution of 2560 by 1600 and a custom FPS of 90. Just remember to set your screen refresh to 90Hz too on the Steam Deck OLED to match. On the LCD Steam Deck, this will be 60Hz, so set both the screen and Moonlight to 60 instead. By doing this to start, it will give you super sharp streaming quality. I leave the bitrate at 53 because that seems to give me the best results in different parts of the house. Feel free to experiment with the bitrate to tune it to get the best results for you, but the higher the bitrate, the higher the quality of the stream. But network latency can also increase if your bitrate is set to higher than your connection can handle well. I tick the box for VSync, and I'm still experimenting on whether I need to tick the frame pacing box or not. So try out what works best for you. After that, scroll down to the bottom and tick the box for Enable HDR Experimental if you're using the Steam Deck OLED. Lastly, you will want to calibrate the HDR on your virtual display. To do this, simply download the Windows HDR calibration tool and run the wizard from the Steam Deck while streaming. To download the tool, go to Display Settings, select your virtual display, scroll down to Use HDR and click on the bar here. On the next menu, you will find a section called HDR Display Calibration. Click here and a browser will pop up taking you to the calibration app where you can download it from here. Alternatively, click on the option on the top right to open the Windows Store app, search Windows HDR Calibration, select the app with the colourful icon and select Install and it will download and install. Then go back to the deck and select the desktop on Moonlight, search for the app and run it. It's pretty straightforward as you just need to follow the on-screen instructions. I would recommend you lower the resolution a bit on the virtual display just to make it easy to read the instructions, then switch it back to your preferred resolution. Next, I'll show you the finished workflow and how it looks, but before I do, here are some additional tips I learned through trial and error. While having a virtual display set up like this, certain apps or windows will open up or end up moving over to your virtual display. And this can be annoying while you're using your PC like you normally would, since it makes it difficult to access them. If this happens, there's a simple way to move windows back to your primary display. To do this, simply hold down the Shift key and right-click on the taskbar or window you want to move and select Move. Then press and hold the left or right direction arrow key on your keyboard and it will slowly move over to your real display. I also find that if I just tap the direction arrow on my keyboard just once, it will give me mouse control over the window and I can just drag it over quickly. Where possible, close out those browser windows and apps if you're not at your PC and want to stream. In my experience, the focus can be lost from the Playnite interface after you finish up with a game, and the Playnite full screen app pops back up, which stops you from being able to control it. To fix it, you just need to close out your streaming session by holding down the LB or RB selecting start buttons, and this will exit the session and return you to Moonlight, then close out of the Playnite session. You can then start another session that works like normal, which is a little inconvenient, but not the end of the world, as it's pretty quick to do. I find that this doesn't really happen if I close out all the windows on my PC, not to mention that you will have better performance for games if you don't have other apps running at the same time. While you're streaming, if you need to switch to using the trackpad as a mouse for whatever reason, just hold the start button for a while and you'll see this red message at the bottom, and your trackpad will work like a mouse and your A button is your left click. Just hold the start button again to switch back to the controller mode. Before launching a game from Playnite on your Steam Deck, I'd recommend that you've installed and launched the game at least once from your desktop. For the best experience, adjust your game settings to run at a locked 90 FPS to match your 90Hz OLED screen and the streaming settings on Moonlight. For games that don't support 90 FPS or for the 60Hz LCD screen of the deck, set them to 60 FPS. This will give you the smoothest gameplay. Keep in mind that the graphic settings will depend on your PC's capabilities. Okay, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's see what all that hard work has accomplished and why I love this setup. Firstly, I love the simple console-like experience and slick interface. I can jump in and navigate to a game and start playing without having to go through the desktop interface. It's handy being able to sort or filter games and have them in different groups or tabs. Games can run at full graphical settings, limited only by your PC's power. This means you can enjoy demanding games with the best graphics and consistent 90 FPS, rather than settling for lower settings and inconsistent frame rates. Then there's the battery life. Since the deck is only decoding a video stream and not running the games itself, it lasts 2 or 3 times longer compared to running the game directly on the deck. Native HDR and Auto HDR support, since Windows 11 supports HDR for games, and Auto HDR helps with games that don't natively support it. This makes the most of your beautiful OLED screen, even while streaming games from your PC. I can now run games from any service, including Xbox Game Pass for PC. It's even better than streaming from the Xbox for Game Pass because games on the PC use a full screen 16:10 aspect ratio, while the Xbox runs games in 16:9 with black borders. Being able to play games with mods. PC games have a huge modding community, but mods might not work with the Steam Deck OS. For example, I recently installed Dragon Age Origins with about 20 mods for bug fixes, quality of life, gameplay, and graphical improvements. Running this game that was released in 2009 from my Windows PC lets me install all these mods with all the improvements easily, whereas it would have been much more difficult or even impossible on the deck since they are designed for Windows. It really makes things easy with a single interface. Having all my games in one interface on my PC with the Playnite desktop mode or Steam Deck with the full screen mode is really convenient. It helps me remember games I forgot I had and prevents me from buying duplicates on Steam for games I already have on another service. I didn't think about this benefit before setting it up, but now I really love it. Lastly, I appreciate getting access to incompatible games. I can now play games that won't work on my deck for various reasons. Despite the progress in getting thousands of games to run natively with Proton, some games still don't run well or won't work at all. This setup lets me play those games. For those of you that are still watching, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end of such a long video, and if this guide helped you out, please go ahead and smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.